I would agree that there is some solidifying of the rich, mostly white, not entirely, but mostly white, and more men than women. It is a little frozen. And if you said to me, is this a system which is stable and should last forever? I'd say, I don't think so. I don't think that our current system should be protected. Surprised? Because the people on the left are saying we want to dismantle everything. And I actually believe that that is necessary. But how do you dismantle everything? How do you do that? How do you do it without breaking everything? Successful white men threw me under the bus 3 times in my life. 3 times in my life, successful white men have shoved a stick so far up my ass that I could taste it. Today in Dilbert, I'm still trying to get canceled. I think I'm getting closer. So I've got a theme this week of the boss character in Dilbert is being accused of being a white supremacist. And if that doesn't get me canceled, I don't know what will. But we're running that right now. And at the same time, I want to tell you that I've had a bit of an evolution about this white supremacy charge, complaint, observation, whatever you want to call it. You may have noticed that the term white supremacy has very much changed in about a month. Let me ask you if you've noticed this. Is it not true that a month ago, if somebody said somebody's a white supremacist, that the understood meaning from both the person saying it and the person hearing it, they had the same understanding that it meant white people who thought they were superior to other people? Am I right? A month ago, that's what you thought it meant. And the people who were saying it apparently thought it meant that too, most of them. Again, everybody's different. There are lots of different people with different messages. But sort of a general theme is that a month ago, it was about a person thinking they were superior to other ethnicities. I spent about a month saying that that doesn't exist. Saying if it would be easy to prove it exists, that there's such a person who thinks that white people are superior to other groups in all things that you can be superior in. And I said, I've never met one, and I doubt one exists. And if you notice that in the last month, nobody produced one. Nobody said, aha, Scott, I only need one example to prove you wrong. If you say Bigfoot doesn't exist, you only need one Bigfoot to prove you wrong about the Bigfoots. And likewise, you only needed one example of somebody who would say it out loud and say, yeah, that's exactly what I believe. Didn't happen. And in that month, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but my understanding is that what white supremacy means now is different. And it seems to have evolved. And it's evolved to a place where I actually agree with it. Surprise, right? So the current definition of what white supremacy means in the context of Black Lives Matter and the protests, the current, I mean really current, I mean like today versus 1 month ago, that current, is that it refers to the fact that the system doesn't have all the mobility that you need, so that the people at the top, who are mostly white, it's hard to dislodge them, and it's hard to get up to their level, because you have a system that's a little bit ossified. It's a little bit hard for anybody to work up from having no money to having a lot of money. It can be done. It's just not that common. So when it happens, it's a news story, right? One of the reasons that I was a news story for decades is that I managed to solve that problem of going from poor to not poor. And I did it with Dilbert, so it became a news story. And a big part of the story was the success part, not just the comic part. So I would agree that if you want to use the term white supremacy, it's provocative, and I don't think I would use it, but I understand why it's being used. It's about a system that just doesn't help people up anymore. Let me give you an example of that. When I was 21 and entering the workforce after college, you could rent a place for just about nothing and live in the city, San Francisco. So you could just get a roommate and you could afford your rent and you could eat on a very low paying job, which I had. My job paid $735 a month, and I could have, a one room apartment and rent it in the city and take public transportation, and I could live. And then I could build my way up. But I also could afford college. So I could afford a college and I could afford housing and living while I worked on my career and stuff and learned things and eventually put together enough, skills in my skill stack and tried enough things that it finally worked out for me. That situation doesn't exist anymore. If you are, I'll just pick for my example, if you're a young person of color, can you definitely go to college? You could probably get scholarships and stuff, but it's tough. Could you rent an apartment in a place that was a good job market? It's tough. So I would agree that there is some solidifying of the rich, mostly white, not entirely, but mostly white, and more men than women. It is a little frozen. And if you said to me, is this a system which is stable and should last forever, I'd say, I don't think so. I don't think that our current system should be protected. Surprised? Because the people on the left are saying we want to dismantle everything. And I actually believe that that is necessary. But how do you dismantle everything? How do you do that? How do you do it without breaking everything? Well, I was going to prepare a special Periscope on that very idea. Now, I think it would be a gigantic mistake to just break everything without something new and better to replace it. That'd be the worst idea. But I do agree that you need some way that, to pick an example, a young black man who's born in an urban environment can look at his prospects and say, yeah, I can do that. I can get an apartment on my own. I can, get the skills and training I need. That just doesn't exist the way it used to. So yeah, that's worth fixing. And so I think it's absolutely, and I have to say that I have also evolved in my thinking to the point where if you see all the ways the system is stacked against everybody who doesn't have money, you could easily say that that has a racial component that is highly correlated to that. But here's the only thing I want to add to the understanding. For every person of color who says to themselves, those rich white people in power, they just want to keep their power and they're white supremacists and stuff like that. Here's the thing you need to know. Those white men who are in power, they will throw me under the bus much faster than you. So let me just say that to a successful white man who's rich, he's a CEO, he's a leader, whatever, the least valuable human in the world is me, another white man who is not successful. Let's say if I had not been. And indeed, I've told you the story when I was a young man and my all white, mostly male senior executive said, we just got in trouble for having no diversity. And the way we're going to fix it is by punishing unsuccessful or not yet successful white men. Successful white men threw me under the bus 3 times in my life. 3 times in my life, successful white men have shoved a stick so far up my ass that I could taste it. You didn't need that, but I thought I'd throw it in there. So if you think I love successful white men, you would be very wrong because they're all assholes, if I may be honest about it. Successful white men pretty much all assholes. Now, what would happen if you replaced the successful white men, who can be assholes, with, let's say, all black men or black women? It would take about a month before they were all assholes. Because successful people don't want to give up their stuff. They don't want to give it up to poor white people. They don't want to give it up to people of color. They don't want to give it up to anybody. So the magic trick that Black Lives Matter has played is to imagine that top 1% of successful white people who also do not want to help unsuccessful white people, that the white people are all some kind of team. We're not. We're not. White people are not a team. The successful people will throw the unsuccessful people under the bus in a heartbeat to protect their position. What's the best thing you can do if you were Mark Benioff? Mark Benioff is a successful white guy, billionaire who runs Salesforce. What would be the most self-interested thing he could do? The most self-interested thing he could do as a successful white billionaire is to throw unsuccessful white people, mostly men, under the bus. It's the smartest thing to do. Wouldn't you do it? Of course you would. Of course you would. Because the alternative is you're a white supremacist. Why would you choose, oh, I'll be a white supremacist, when you could be a hero? Now, that said, Mark Benioff is actually an awesome person who is very good for the world. So I have only good things to say about him. He's genuinely a good person who is just a good force in the world. But the fact is, white people are not some big unified group in that sense.